You have to want it. Not kind of want it, not wish for it when life gets easy, not hope it shows up one day like a package on your doorstep. You have to want it so deeply that it consumes you. Desire is the fuel of transformation. Without it, nothing moves, nothing changes, nothing evolves. Every breakthrough in your life begins with a decision, and that decision starts with desire. Think about it. How many times in your life have you said, "I want to change," but nothing really shifted? You said you wanted to get healthier, start a business, improve your relationships, but days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and you were still in the same place. Why? Because wanting something casually is not enough. You need to want it with every fiber of your being. You need to want it so much that the thought of not having it becomes unbearable. The truth is, most people settle. They say they want success, but they're not willing to do what it takes. They say they want love, but they're not willing to give themselves fully. They say they want freedom, but they stay locked in patterns that keep them trapped. They confuse interest with commitment. But there's a difference between being interested in a dream and being committed to it. When you're interested, you do it when it's convenient. When you're committed, you do it no matter what. You have to want it more than your excuses, more than your fears, more than the comfort of staying the same. That's the battle, because your brain is wired to protect you, to keep you safe, to keep you in the familiar. But safety doesn't lead to greatness. Growth lives outside of safety. Transformation lives outside of comfort. And the moment you truly decide that you want it, you step into a new level of power. Here's the truth most people don't want to face. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not talent. It's not luck. It's hunger. The ones who succeed are not always the smartest, not always the most skilled. They're the ones who wanted it the most. They were willing to fail, to fall, to get back up again and again until the breakthrough came. So let me ask you right now, how bad do you want it? Because if you can't answer that with absolute certainty, you're not ready yet. But if you can feel it in your chest, if you can see it in your mind so clearly it almost hurts, then you're ready to pay the price. And yes, there will be a price. You will sacrifice sleep. You will face rejection. You will doubt yourself. But every step, every scar, every sleepless night will be worth it. You have to want it so badly that no obstacle can stop you. You have to want it so fiercely that when life says no, you say, "Watch me." That's how revolutions are born, how destinies are rewritten, how ordinary people become extraordinary. Not by luck, not by chance, but by hunger. Because when you want it badly enough, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop waiting for the right time, the right conditions, the right approval. You move, you act, you create momentum, and momentum is everything. It's the force that turns a dream into a reality. So decide today what you want more than anything. Burn the bridges to your old excuses. Demand more of yourself than anyone else ever could. Feed that hunger every single day. Because at the end of the day, success doesn't belong to the most talented, the most connected, or the most gifted. It belongs to the ones who want it the most. Desire is the fuel of transformation. Without a deep want, nothing changes. It's not enough to casually wish for something, to daydream about a better life, or to tell yourself, "Someday I'll make it happen." Someday never comes for people who don't light a fire inside themselves. The truth is, the world doesn't respond to half-hearted wishes. It responds to those who burn with a hunger so strong that they're willing to do whatever it takes. That kind of desire is rare, but it's the very force that separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. When you truly want something, it creates an energy within you that nothing else can. You stop waiting for chances, and you start creating them. You stop settling for what's handed to you, and you start demanding more from life. That's what desire does. It awakens the giant within you that refuses to accept mediocrity. Think about the times in your life when you really wanted something. Not just thought about it or said it out loud, but truly wanted it with all your heart. Maybe it was an opportunity, maybe a goal, maybe a relationship. You remember the way it consumed your thoughts, the way it kept you awake at night, the way it made you push past limits you didn't even know you had. That was desire at work. It's that kind of want that makes the impossible possible. Without it, you stay in the same routines, the same cycles, telling yourself stories about why life isn't changing, but the truth is, you haven't wanted it badly enough yet. People often confuse wishing with wanting. Wishing is passive. It's saying, I hope things get better. Wanting, real wanting, is active. It pushes you to take risks, to sacrifice, to step outside your comfort zone even when it's terrifying. It's the difference between someone who says, I'd love to be fit, and someone who wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning to train. It's the difference between the person who says, I want financial freedom, and the one who spends nights and weekends building a vision while others are watching TV. Desire is not a luxury, it's the foundation. Without it, no strategy, no plan, no opportunity can last, because the moment it gets hard, and it will, you'll quit. The secret that most people don't realize is that desire creates its own momentum. The stronger your want, the more resourceful you become. You find solutions you didn't know existed. You connect with people who share your vision. You refuse to back down when others would surrender. The level of your desire determines the level of your action. That's why two people can have the same goal, the same resources, and the same opportunities, but one will thrive while the other fades away. It's not about circumstances, it's about hunger. And here's what makes desire so powerful. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. When you want something badly enough, you stop tolerating the excuses you used to lean on. You stop surrounding yourself with people who hold you back. You stop letting fear dictate your choices. Desire forces you to evolve. It pushes you into becoming the version of yourself who is capable of holding the life you've been dreaming about. Without that want, you stay the same person, waiting for life to hand you more while you remain unprepared to handle it. Look at anyone who has achieved something extraordinary. Behind their success is not just talent or opportunity, it's an unshakable desire. They wanted it more than they wanted sleep. They wanted it more than they wanted approval. They wanted it more than they wanted to avoid pain, and because of that, they tapped into a level of resilience that most people never discover. That's what desire does. It unlocks the strength, the persistence, and the courage you didn't know you had. So if you're sitting there wondering why life hasn't changed, the first place to look isn't outside. It's inside. Ask yourself, how badly do I want this? Because if the answer isn't more than anything, then that's the problem. Desire is the starting line. It's the ignition switch. It's the force that turns a dream into a plan, and a plan into a reality. Without it, you're just drifting. With it, you're unstoppable. The difference between interest and commitment determines success. So many people say they want change, they say they want success. They say they want to live a better life. But what they really mean is they're interested in it as long as it's easy, as long as it doesn't cost too much, as long as it doesn't force them to get uncomfortable. Interest is easy. It's that spark of excitement you feel when you imagine the result without truly facing the process. Commitment, though, is a completely different animal. Commitment means you show up no matter what. It means you keep moving forward even when every part of you wants to quit. It means your word to yourself becomes law, not a suggestion. And that's the line that separates dreamers from doers. When you're interested, you take action when the conditions are right. When you're committed, you take action regardless of the conditions. Interest says, I'll try. Commitment says, I will. Interest is driven by emotion, by how you feel in the moment. Commitment is driven by decision, a decision that doesn't waver just because circumstances get tough. The truth is, Success has very little to do with talent and almost everything to do with consistency. And consistency only comes from commitment. Because let's be honest, motivation fades. Excitement wears off. There will be mornings when you don't feel like showing up, evenings when exhaustion whispers that you deserve to skip it. If you're only interested, you'll listen. If you're committed, you'll push through. Think about the difference between someone who says they want to get fit and someone who is committed to it. The one who's merely interested goes to the gym when it's convenient, when they're in the mood, when they haven't had a long day. The committed person goes regardless. Rain or shine, busy or tired, they show up. Not because it's easy, not because they always enjoy it, but because they decided that nothing will stop them from reaching their goal. That is the essence of commitment. It doesn't depend on mood, it depends on decision. And that decision is what changes everything. When you're committed, you find a way. You don't spend time negotiating with yourself. You don't keep asking, "Do I feel like it today?" You've already made the choice. The only question left is, how am I going to get it done? That's the power of commitment. It removes the wiggle room that destroys progress. It locks you in, and when you're locked in, momentum builds. You start to see results, and those results fuel you to keep going even stronger. The world rewards commitment, not interest. Opportunities come to those who prove they won't quit. People want to invest in, work with, and follow those who demonstrate persistence, not those who dabble when it's convenient. Life has a way of testing us, of putting obstacles in our path to see how serious we really are. And those tests are not designed to stop you. They're designed to ask you, are you truly committed? If the answer is yes, you keep moving. If it's no, you fall back into the crowd of people who live in the land of someday. It's easy to say you're interested in success when you're feeling inspired. It's another thing entirely to keep going when no one is watching, when the applause is gone, when progress feels invisible. That's where commitment is proven. It's in the lonely hours, the late nights, the early mornings, the repeated effort that no one else sees. That's where greatness is born. Not in the moment you decide you want something, but in the thousands of moments after when you could have quit but chose not to. So the real question you need to ask yourself is this: am I interested or am I committed? Because the results you get in life will always answer that question for you. If you look at your life right now and see patterns of starting and stopping, of getting excited and then burning out, of making promises and then breaking them, that's interest. If you see a pattern of relentless action, of refusing to let circumstances dictate your progress, of showing up again and again regardless of how you feel, that's commitment. Interest is a wish. Commitment is a declaration. Interest says it would be nice. Commitment says it will be mine. Interest waits for the right time. Commitment makes the time right now. Interest looks for shortcuts. Commitment embraces the process. And the truth is, only one of those creates the life you dream about. You must want it more than your fears, excuses, and comfort zone. That's the dividing line between those who step into greatness and those who remain trapped in the cycle of mediocrity. Fear will always be there. Excuses will always show up. The comfort zone will always whisper, "Stay here, it's safe." But if you listen to those voices, you'll never discover who you're truly capable of becoming. Wanting something more than all of that means you decide to face the discomfort head on, to lean into the fear instead of backing away, to silence the excuses that try to rationalize why you should stay small. Fear is not your enemy. It's your signal that you're standing on the edge of growth. Every major breakthrough in life requires you to feel fear and move anyway. The difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck is not that one feels fear and the other doesn't. It's that one refuses to let fear make the decision. Wanting it more than your fears means acknowledging the voice that says, "What if I fail?" and answering back, "What if I succeed?" It's the willingness to risk embarrassment, rejection, or failure because the possibility of transformation is more important than the comfort of staying the same. Excuses are the language of the comfort zone. They disguise themselves as logic, as practicality, as reason, but really they're chains holding you back. I don't have time. I don't have the money. I don't have the connections. Those are not truths, they are stories. Stories designed to keep you safe but also small. Wanting it more than your excuses means you stop buying into those lies. You realize that everyone who has ever achieved something incredible started with the same doubts, the same obstacles, the same lack of perfect resources. The difference is they refused to let those excuses define them. They looked at the gap between where they were and where they wanted to be, and instead of saying, "I can't," they said, "I'll find a way." And then there's the comfort zone, that seductive place where everything feels familiar, predictable, and easy. It's where dreams go to die, because nothing extraordinary grows there. The comfort zone promises safety, but it robs you of progress. You can't have growth and comfort at the same time. The moment you step outside it, you'll feel resistance, doubt, maybe even pain. That's normal. That's the price of change. But if your desire is greater than your attachment to comfort, you'll keep pushing. And every time you do, your comfort zone expands. What once terrified you becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes second nature. That's how you evolve. Wanting it more than your fears, excuses, and comfort zone means deciding that the pain of regret is far worse than the pain of effort. Because regret doesn't go away. Regret lingers. Years from now, you won't remember the fear you felt before taking a risk, but you'll remember if you never took it. You won't remember the discomfort of pushing yourself, but you'll remember if you let excuses chain you down. You won't remember the nights of sweat and sacrifice, but you'll remember if you let the comfort zone steal your dreams. Every great story of triumph is a story of someone who wanted it more. They wanted it more than the fear of failing in front of others. They wanted it more than the excuses that told them they didn't have what it takes. They wanted it more than the temptation to stay comfortable where life was easy but unfulfilling. That hunger pulled them through moments when most people would have quit. It carried them past setbacks, disappointments, and doubts, and it gave them the power to rewrite their story. The truth is, the obstacles will never go away. There will always be fear. There will always be excuses. There will always be the option to stay comfortable, but you get to choose which voice wins. You get to choose whether your desire is strong enough to silence the noise. You get to choose whether you'll chase the life you've imagined or settle for the one that feels safe. And that choice is made not once, but every single day in the moments when it's easier to give in, easier to quit, easier to go back to what you know. That's when you remind yourself why you started. That's when you remind yourself that you want it more. Hunger, not talent or luck, is the true separator between success and failure. You can have all the talent in the world, but without hunger, that talent sits unused. You can be given lucky breaks, but if you don't have hunger, you won't sustain the opportunity. Hunger is the force that drives you to keep going long after the excitement has faded, long after others have given up, long after the obstacles have multiplied. It's the fire that pushes you out of bed when you'd rather stay asleep, the drive that keeps you grinding when no one is watching, the relentless force that refuses to let you settle for average. Talent is valuable, but talent without hunger is wasted potential. We've all seen people with incredible gifts who never lived up to them because they lacked the drive to fully use them. On the other hand, history is filled with people who weren't the most skilled, weren't the most educated, weren't the most connected, but they had an unshakable hunger. And that hunger carried them to levels of success that others only dreamed of. Hunger is more powerful than skill because it makes you resourceful, it makes you resilient, and it makes you unstoppable. Luck can open a door, but hunger is what keeps you walking through it again and again, even when the hallway feels endless. Luck might hand you a chance, but if you're not hungry, you won't seize it. And even if you do, without hunger you won't last. Hunger doesn't rely on chance, it creates it. People who are hungry don't wait for life to give them opportunities. They go out and build them. They refuse to sit back and hope. They take massive action until the world has no choice but to notice. Hunger changes your relationship with failure. To most people, failure is the end. To the hungry, failure is feedback. They don't see it as proof they can't succeed. They see it as a lesson pointing them toward a better strategy. That's why the hungry are relentless. They don't count the times they fall. They count the times they get back up. Their desire burns so deeply that quitting isn't even on the table. They're willing to face rejection, pain, and sacrifice because the alternative, settling, is unacceptable. You can spot someone who is hungry because they have a certain look in their eyes. They're not waiting for the right mood, the right moment, or the right circumstances. They make moves while others make excuses. They're willing to start from nothing to learn, to fail, to grow. They don't need someone to constantly motivate them because their hunger is their motivation. It's the inner drive that tells them, I don't care how long it takes. I will not stop until I get there. The world is filled with people who had talent but never fulfilled their potential. It's filled with people who got lucky breaks but lost them just as quickly. But the world also tells the stories of those who had nothing but hunger and turned it into everything. Hunger will make you stay up late studying when everyone else is asleep. Hunger will make you practice your craft over and over until you master it. Hunger will make you take risks that others are too afraid to touch. Hunger will make you keep going when logic tells you to quit. And hunger isn't just about ambition, it's about purpose. When you're truly hungry, it's not about showing off, it's not about proving others wrong, it's about fulfilling the calling inside you. It's about knowing you were made for more and refusing to accept less. Hunger connects you with your vision in a way that talent and luck never could. It anchors you when storms come. It fuels you when the path feels endless. It keeps you going when there's no applause, no recognition, no immediate payoff. At the end of the day, the people who rise are not always the most gifted. They're the ones who wanted it so badly they were willing to pay the price. They're the ones who didn't wait for luck. They created momentum through their hunger. They're the ones who understood that talent might open the door, but hunger is what kicks it down. Momentum is born when you stop negotiating with yourself and take decisive action. Too many people get stuck in the cycle of hesitation, convincing themselves they'll start tomorrow, next week, or when conditions feel perfect. But perfection never comes. The truth is, progress doesn't come from endless planning or waiting for the right time. It comes from action. The moment you decide and move, you create momentum. And momentum is powerful because it doesn't just move you forward, it makes the next step easier and the next one after that. It builds on itself, turning small beginnings into unstoppable progress. Negotiating with yourself is the silent killer of dreams. It's the voice that says, you don't have to do it today, you're tired, you've already done enough, start fresh tomorrow. It sounds reasonable, but every time you listen, you give away a piece of your power. You train yourself to delay instead of decide, to hesitate instead of act. But when you stop negotiating and just do the thing, whether you feel like it or not, you reclaim control. You teach your brain that your word matters, that when you decide, you follow through. That's how momentum is built, through the discipline of action, not the comfort of negotiation. Think about pushing a heavy rock. At first, it takes every ounce of strength to get it moving, but once it's rolling, it takes less effort to keep it going. That's momentum. The hardest part is the beginning, when resistance is strongest. But if you can push through that initial resistance by refusing to bargain with yourself, you unleash a force that carries you further than you imagine. And the beauty of momentum is that it compounds. Each action builds confidence. Each step makes the next one feel more possible. Soon, what once felt overwhelming becomes part of your normal rhythm. Momentum doesn't come from thinking. It comes from doing. The mind can trap you in analysis, overthinking every possibility, waiting for certainty. But certainty doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. When you start, you learn. When you move, you adapt. When you act, clarity follows. That's why the people who achieve the most aren't the ones who always know exactly what to do. They're the ones who are willing to act even when they're unsure. They trust that momentum will create the path. Stopping to negotiate every decision kills that flow. Every maybe later is a brick wall in front of your momentum, but the moment you decide no more negotiating, I act now, you create a habit of forward motion. That habit becomes part of your identity. You stop being someone who talks about what they're going to do and start being someone who lives it. And once you embody that identity, momentum becomes natural. You don't need to hype yourself up because movement is who you are. Momentum also has a way of silencing fear. Fear thrives in inaction, in the spaces between decisions. When you hesitate, fear grows louder, convincing you that you're not ready, that you might fail, that it's safer to wait. But when you act, fear has no time to root itself. Action drowns out doubt. You realize that most of the things you were afraid of were illusions, obstacles your mind created. And every time you prove fear wrong by moving forward, you weaken its grip. That's the gift of momentum. It doesn't just move your body, it transforms your mind. Momentum makes discipline easier. At the start, discipline feels like forcing yourself to do what you don't want to do. But once momentum kicks in, the effort feels lighter. You build routines, you build patterns, you build strength. Success becomes less about willpower and more about flow. And that's when real change happens, not from giant leaps, but from the accumulation of consistent, decisive actions that stack on top of each other until they create a reality you once only dreamed of. The people who create extraordinary results aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones who mastered momentum. They stopped waiting. They stopped bargaining. They acted again and again until their actions created a force bigger than their excuses, bigger than their fears, bigger than their comfort zone. That's what momentum does. It turns ordinary days into extraordinary progress, one decisive action at a time.